Good morning. Rev here this morning. I hope you're safe, you're well, and blessed this morning. I hope you had a blessed Easter weekend. I know that I did. We had good attendance at all three services yesterday morning. The sunrise service was well attended, and both churches were well attended, and it was just it was a great day, and I was blessed, and so I hope you were too. I want to do something today, kind of a continuation of my sermon from yesterday. This devotion that I'm going to do is actually written by Reverend Tim McConnell, but I come across it and I want to share it with you this morning. I started in John 18 yesterday, or John 20, and read verses 1 to 18. But I want to read, I'm going to continue on. Chapter 20, verse 19. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After this, he showed them his hands and his side, and the disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And with that he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone his sins, they are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." And now I'm going to skip down to chapter 21, beginning with verse 1. After Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, or afterward Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, it happened this way. Simon, Peter, Thomas, called Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples were together. "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them. And they said, "Well, we'll go with you." And so they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. And so ends the reading of the Gospel according to St. John this morning. And may God add his blessing to it. We have journeyed through the 40 days of Lent. And we went through the mountaintops and the valleys of Holy Week and Easter morning and the empty tomb. Now what? What comes after Easter in our understanding of the faith journey that we have chosen to take? Excuse me. In John 20:19, beginning with verse 19, what I just read to you, we read of the fear and the lack of hope that consumed the thinking of the disciples after the crucifixion and the experience at the empty tomb. Then Jesus showed up. He came and he stood among them and he said, "I'm here just like I said I would be. Put aside your fear, replace it with my peace." And then Jesus breathed on them. Receive the Holy Spirit and get ready to be sent out into the world, just as I have been sent. I send you. However, in the next chapter, chapter 21, in John, we find the disciples going back to work, doing what they knew how to do best, and doing what they did before they met Jesus. They went fishing. They went back to the familiar routine of everyday living, as if the previous 3 years with Jesus and his ministry were just a fading memory. Sometimes we're advised, after experiencing a traumatic event, as the disciples had, we're told to get busy, go back to work. You'll get over it. Excuse me again. Maybe the disciples began to think this Jesus movement was a good thing while it lasted, but all good things must come to an end. So let's just go back to work. Let's forget all about this kingdom talk and especially this resurrection idea. The story is ended. Then early one morning, the risen Christ finds these disciples turned back to fishermen, and he says to them, basically he says, it's not over. It's just getting started. If you remember, I mentioned that yesterday in my sermon. It's just getting started. Easter's not the end, it's the beginning. Jesus says, do you love me? Get out of those boats and feed my sheep. Go find my people and teach them the things that I've taught you. Go be my church. It's not easy to start over. I get that. Maybe we'd never start over without the pushing, the pulling, the prodding of the risen Christ. Peter and the others, they were quite content to go back to the routine, to the familiar, to a life that was safer than following Jesus. However, for the disciples and for us, as Christian people, the story's not over. It's not finished. So Jesus comes to us and says once again, follow me. Hopefully, we won't be like the disciples who decided that the story was over and they went sorrowfully back to their fishing, to the way that they were before Jesus. It is a temptation to let down spiritually after Easter, when the events, when all the excitement's all over. We're drawn back into the routine and the commonplace and the repetition of our jobs and our responsibilities. Sometimes, maybe even unintentionally, we tend to put Easter carefully back on the shelf as a holiday until next year. So, what is the next step for those who believe in Easter? I believe that Easter is present tense. It's about following Jesus right now. It's about living as if God is victorious and unstoppable and triumphant now. As Easter people, we must believe that God will never, let me say that again. As Easter people, we must believe that God will get God's way in the end, no matter what. If Jesus' death on the cross has been defeated by the empty tomb at Easter, what other victories is God working on? How is God working in your life? And even in mine, to give us victory over temptation and sin? Where does God show up in your daily walk? If we allow it, Easter can move us quickly from the affirmation He is risen to an assignment. Go into your family, your community, and into the world and do something about it. And by carrying out that assignment, Easter continues within the lives of each one of us for the rest of our life and beyond. You see, God isn't finished with His story. God isn't finished with us. The story is alive. So what's next? The rest of the story. I'm Pastor Mark. Love you guys. Be safe, be well, be blessed. I'll see you tomorrow.